Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. This is a weekly vlog where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with firearms, the firearms community, the news, current events, and I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. This week deals with gun modification, and what do you guys do when you buy a gun? Do you go out and buy a whole ton of accessories for it? Or do you like to keep it stock? Well, let's look at today's question and then we'll see the results of the poll and get your comments. As a content creator here on YouTube, the YouTube AI and algorithm are constantly flagging my videos for gun modification, whether or not I change anything out on the firearm I am showing, thus leading me to constantly have to ask for manual reviews of my videos. So this gave me the inspiration for this week's question. When you purchase a firearm, how likely are you to modify it or change out parts? If you do or do not, what are your reasons and what do you change? Now, one of the reasons I asked this question as well, besides the preference that the YouTube AI and algorithm are always flagging my videos, is that I do get a lot of guns into the channel on review from some amazing friends and amazing subscribers, and I am so blessed that I get to shoot these awesome firearms and bring you guys the content. But sometimes when I get these guns, parts have been changed out, and I always tell people in the range reports, hey, the owner of this gun who has linked it to the channel has changed the sights, changed the trigger, changed this, done this, modified it in this way. Because I always want to be upfront, because the way one trigger might work in, let's say, a CZ pistol that has been modified or had a Cajun Gunworks trigger put into it will not be the same as the one that you buy out of the box. So I'm always upfront about it. And many times in the comments section, I will be asked, can you review this gun without the trigger? Can you review this gun without the sights being changed out? And many times I go, I can't. It's not my gun. I'm not going to take off parts, put in factory parts. I just bring you the guns as I get them. Now, when I review my own guns, typically I'm going to shoot stock guns. That's really the type of reviews I would like to do almost all the time, unless I'm reviewing a specific part. But as I said, I love bringing you guys as much content as I possibly can. And sometimes the guns I get in already have parts changed out on them. And that's why I just tell you about what's been changed and why, and what I think about those parts and how it may or may not affect the actual gun that you would get out of the box. So with that said, let's see what the results of this week's poll are. With a total of 878 votes this week, which is pretty good, we have, I like to keep my firearms stock, I buy them the way I want them, 10%. I rarely change anything, but if I do, it's a minor part, 25%. I do not rush to do it, but I will change out parts over time, 52%. The first thing I do is buy every cool part in the aftermarket, 7%. And finally, I custom build all my guns from scratch, 5%. Now, to be honest with you, the results of this poll kind of surprised me a little bit. And this is only because of my friends and the circle of people that I know that love guns. I have people that will come over here to the house that are just local friends. We'll talk about guns. They'll show me what they've been doing, how they've tricked out their guns, what they've bought. And I would have to say that 90 to 95% of the people that are in my close circle of friends that are in the gun world always change out parts. I can't tell you how many people I know that have CZs, and the very first thing, before they even get the gun home, they've already gone online and bought the Cajun Gunworks trigger upgrade for it, because it's the best trigger upgrade in the world. Now, my thoughts have always been, in general, I want to buy the gun I want out of the box. I don't want to go home and change out a ton of parts. Now, that doesn't mean I won't go ahead and do that. And I have a couple of guns here as an example. Now, also remember that I'm a collector. And when I purchase or build a gun or trick out a gun, I'm doing it for a very specific purpose. I have guns that are only collectible, so I will not modify them in any way. And so I have two very similar guns here. Here I have a Glock 22, this is the RTF2 version of the gun with the fishgill serrations. Kind of rare. They only made this for a short period of time. Some people refer to this as the Glock Gen 3.5. It has a very, very rough texture to it. I really like the way those serrations are. The price on these only go up, especially if you have a G17, G19, or a G23. The G22 was the most popular one that was made for law enforcement, but they are going up in price just because they kind of look cool and they're very, very different. I will not change out any parts on this gun. It's worth more to me in the stock configuration. And I also think about the resale value. Now, some guns when I buy, I do think about the future of selling them. Because I can tell you, when I go on websites like Texas Gun Trader and I'm buying a gun, I typically do not buy modified guns, even if I'm going to change out parts on that gun eventually myself, because I don't know who did it. I don't know where they sourced the parts. I don't know if anything was damaged when it was changed out. But if the gun is stock, it's worth more to me, both monetarily, but also intrinsically, because I know it is the way it came from the factory. Now, then I have guns that I buy and change out parts for a very specific reason. This is my Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS. And as you can see, it's tricked out with a ton of stuff here. I got a Trijicon red dot, I got Trijicon suppressor height sights, a Silencer Co. threaded barrel, a Surefire scout light here, or maybe it's not a scout light, it's the X300 Ultra. Very popular pistol light here. I got some Tango Down base plates. Got a lot of stuff on this gun that I've changed out, but I bought it with that in mind. And so when I approach each gun and what I'm going to do to it, I have to decide what is going to be the philosophy of use. Now, for the most part, I keep my gun stock. I am a collector, and that is what I do. If I do change out parts, it's pretty much only going to be on the guns that I shoot, and I will only do slight modifications to it. This gun is kind of an exception. So when I talk about each one of these options, understand that I can fall into any of these categories, but in general, I like to keep my guns pretty stock. So let's break these down and I'll give you guys my individual thoughts. First off, I like to keep my firearm stock. I buy them the way that I want them, 10%. I think this is financially the best option. If you're not a huge gun guy, huge gun collector, this is probably the way to go. And to be honest with you, if I'm spending a lot of money on a gun, I want it to be awesome right out of the box. I don't want to have to buy anything, change anything out. I want the trigger to be good. If it's not good, if you have to take a gun home and the first thing you do is buy all these parts to make it good, well, I think you just wasted money, in some cases doubled the price of the gun, and you don't really have the gun. You didn't buy the gun because now you have all these aftermarket parts on them. Another issue that you might have when you buy a lot of parts is something called tolerance stacking. A lot of people don't think about this, but this mainly deals more with like AR-15s than anything else, where you get a bunch of aftermarket parts that are not built the same way. Even though everything is supposed to be mil spec, you can get a few parts that are out of spec, and as you add more parts that are a little bit out of spec, you get tolerance stacking, where eventually the rifle is going to become inaccurate or fail or have function issues because a number of the parts are milled out wrong or built wrong, and as they try to interact with each other, you have issues. So sometimes changing out too many parts on a gun can actually be a bad thing, and I don't recommend it, especially if you only have one or two guns. Then I rarely change anything, but if I do, it's a minor part. I'm gonna have to say, if I could only vote in one thing on this poll, this might be the one. It's either gonna keep them stock or this one, because when I do shoot guns, a lot of times I will change out sights, especially on Glocks. You know, Glocks really aren't guns that I expect to really go up in value. So this one, as I mentioned here, I'm gonna keep everything on it the way it came out of the box with those goofy plastic Glock sights. But many times when it comes to guns that I'm going to use a lot, I'm gonna change out the sights. Many times to like a Trijicon or an Ameriglow, something else to get a better sight picture. But I don't change out the trigger. I don't change out anything else about the gun. So it's a very, very minor part, and I don't think detracts too much away from the end value if I ended up having to sell it. Then I do not rush to do it, but I will change out parts over time. 52%, overwhelming. Well, as I mentioned, I kind of thought that this would get a little bit less. The one that I thought would actually win this is the first thing I do is buy every cool part in the aftermarket. Only got 7% on that one. And that's only because of my experience of talking to other people. I know people will go to the gun show. People will message me pictures. Hey, I was at the Fort Worth gun show. I was at the Dallas Market Hall gun show today. I bought this gun. And then I went over to the Glock guy. There's a very famous kind of Glock gunsmith here in the DFW area. He changes out all these parts, adds all these things. And I know people will go and buy a Glock, and the first thing to do is take it over to him and have him change out all the parts. Well, that's kind of weird. You want to buy the gun you want to buy. But that's just me. But I know so many people that are that way that I'm surprised that the one where people say, I go out and buy everything I possibly can as fast as I can, didn't actually win. But I can see the pragmatist probably in most people saying, I'm going to change out parts over time, maybe as new products come out on the market. But that's just kind of a personal choice. And then, as I said, the first thing I do is buy every cool part in the aftermarket. Only got 7%. I really thought that one was going to get a lot more, because that's visually what I see people doing in my own personal life, what I see people doing online all the time. I personally like to review stock guns, and when I watch reviews, I want to see stock guns, but so many times when I want to find out something about another gun, they're all modified. I have to find people that are like, oh yeah, I've already changed out the trigger, I've added this sight, I've done this, added this rail, here's this, here's that. It's like, that's not the gun you bought. It's really cool and I like it, but I kind of wanted to know, if I bought that gun, what's that trigger really going to be like? I don't know now because you've changed out all the parts and you've even said you've thrown them away. So I don't know. That's just kind of a personal preference. So when I buy a gun, I want to know what it's going to be like right out of the box. And then finally, I custom build all of my guns from scratch, 5%. I wanted to put that one in there mainly because I know that there's a lot of people out there that love to build guns. I'm one of those people personally. I love to build AR-15s, but I also like to buy collectible ARs as well. So I have some, just like I have these Glocks, I have some that I have built from the ground up with all the parts that I absolutely wanted and thought were the best. And then other ones, I keep them bone stock, because if they're in that configuration, they're going to be worth a lot more to collectors much later if I ever decide to sell them and I can maximize the value. And for me, they're worth a little bit more. I can look at other things in the collecting world, like classic cars, a numbers matching car, which means that the engine is original, the transmission is original, it originally made it up, all the serial numbers matched. The car is worth more to collectors than one where the engines have been changed out. There was also a very famous show a long time ago, I'm sure you guys have seen it, called Pawn Stars. And one of the things that Rick Harrison, who was the owner of the pawn shop, said, that the things that are collectible today are not the things that when they came out they thought they were collectible. They were the things that either got all thrown away or people changed things about them. So to find one in original condition today is kind of rare. And that's why the price of some collectible guns that are unmodified will skyrocket when the ones that have been modified are pretty cheap. Look at old GI 1911s from World War I or World War II. If you find one that is unmolested, one that just maybe went to the arsenal of the US Army one time, it is worth thousands and thousands of dollars. But then you got the ones that have all the parts that are changed out and they're worth $1,100, even though it's the same frame and slide. It's not worth as much because everything's been modified. You want the original. So there's my thoughts on this. Let's see what you guys have to say in the top rated comments of the week. So with the top rated comment of the week, we have Gort, who says, I actually have 3 answers here. For my carry weapons, I choose wisely and leave them stock. I may change sights to night sights, for example, but that's it. No trigger changes for sure. For those that are for range use only, it's a different story. Then I admit to being the ultimate tinkerer because it's something that I enjoy doing. Last but not least, I build my ARs 100% from scratch using components that I know, like, and trust. Call me strange, but I enjoy building AR lowers. Well, first off, Gort, I don't think you're strange at all. That is something I love to do myself. It's great to see a project come together like that. I love sitting out here by myself, listening to podcasts, watching videos, and working right here on this workbench to build a gun. And then when the whole thing is together and you take it to the range, it's so much fun. But it also sounds like Gort feels the same way that I do. Depends on the gun that I'm dealing with. Sometimes they're collectibles. Now, I will say when it comes to my carry guns, I'm more likely to modify them, mainly with what he said, sights and very small parts. It's my collector guns that I won't touch. Then we have Catechus Legion 78, who says, since it's my money I'm spending on me, I try to make sure what I'm getting stock fits my needs. So far, the biggest change I've made on a gun was giving my Ruger 1022 an extended magazine release lever, and now those mags drop with ease. Well, I also agree with this type of philosophy as well. I want to buy the gun as close as I can get it to the way I want it. It is kind of sad though that many of these big manufacturers don't offer more options. I'm really surprised that with companies like Glock, they know what people change on their guns as soon as they get them. So I'm always kind of surprised that they don't look at their customer base and go, you know what, nobody likes these stupid sights that we put on the guns. Well, we're going to charge $10 or $15 more and we're going to give them a proper set of metal backup sights or the like. I'm really surprised they don't listen to their customers and change those aspects of the gun. Ruger is another good example where a lot of people will change things out on the Ruger 1022. They want an extended charging handle or something. We'll offer a model with that. And then I think Ruger could actually make more money and customers get what they want right out of the box. The next up we have Jay Rico, who says, I don't rush it, but over time I usually end up doing something to my firearms. And I think that's kind of the majority of how people feel. And I can understand, you buy a gun, you like it, then over time you hear about an awesome product, you're like, maybe be nice if I added that laser, that light, changed out that slide stop because it's the new hotness that's all hit the market, everyone's talking about. So you don't rush to do it, but you do it when everyone says, hey, this product is really worth it. Then we have Robert Knight, who says, I keep my gun stock mostly. I will sometimes change a trigger, springs, grips, magazine release, or slide locks from time to time. And once again, I'm kind of the same way, but then I like how he says he likes to keep his guns mostly stock. And then he changes everything about the gun. Now, Robert, I'm just messing with you. I totally get it. I'm the same way. But it's really interesting that people will change so much about their guns, even though someone like myself likes to keep them stock. And then finally we have Gurr, who says, I think it depends on the type of firearm and what I'm using it for. Handguns in most cases stay stock, aside from maybe switching out the sights or adding a light laser. Long guns really depend on their use, but are more likely to get customized. And I can see this as well. I would have to say when it comes to my pistols versus rifles, I'm pretty much the same way when it comes to my range guns. Now my collector guns, they all stay stock, or if I put anything on them, it's part of a clone build, something that would have come on them if they were issued by the military. But when it comes to my rifles, they're extremely customized, or way more customized than my pistols are. So I think that's kind of the way that I approach this topic as well. Well, this has been really insightful. I know that a lot of us guys and gals like to tinker with our guns. We like to modify them and make them fit our bodies better. Not just bodies, hands, shoulders, you know, length of pull, all that kind of stuff. We also want the latest and greatest cool stuff. So I get that as well. This is one of the awesome things about the modern firearms community. Some people say that guns like the AR-15 are Legos for adults. I kind of agree with them. They're awesome guns, but I don't think when Eugene Stoner designed it, he ever expected to have the modularity it does today. But anyway, people that own their guns, that are modifying themselves, that are tricking them out, I think it's great because it gets them more invested in the Second Amendment, and I think it makes them safer gun owners because now you know your weapon and it's tailored more to you than anything else. So you appreciate it more, you take care of it, and you're more likely to use it safely because it's fit to you better. So there you go. That is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Hope you guys enjoy this. If you want to participate in next week's poll, please go down to the community tab of my channel, and the next week's poll will be posted there. You can also find a link to that in the description below. So please go over there, vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. So there you go. Very interesting. I always enjoy hearing all the things you guys have to say. And just so you guys know, I never vote myself or comment or respond to comments because I never want to alter the results. So there you go. So let me know if you have any questions. So as always, thanks for watching.